views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mission BX. I'm your host, Eileen Newman, and Mission BX is a collaboration between the Center for Bronx Nonprofits at Hostos Community College and BronxNet. We take you behind the scenes at various nonprofits in the Bronx so that you can see the wonderful work they're doing for the community. Today, we're going to be visiting with Desmon and Derrick Lewis. Desmon and Derrick Lewis are the co-founders of the Bronx Community Foundation, a foundation that has already stepped up to help organizations and people in the Bronx during this pandemic and will be continuing the work, making the Bronx a better place to live for everyone. So stick around and come with me to meet Desmon and Derrick and hear about the wonderful work they're doing in the Bronx with a lot of great volunteers and people who want to make the Bronx a better place for everyone. Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be doing something just a little bit different. We're going to be visiting with Derrick and Desmon Lewis, who are the co-founders of the Bronx Community Foundation. So it's a little bit of a different kind of nonprofit, but they're doing some very exciting work in the Bronx. So Desmon and Derrick, thank you so much for taking time to do this. And I'm sure there are some people who've heard about the work that you're doing with the Bronx Foundation, but can you tell us a little bit about, let's start with talking about you two who suddenly appeared and are doing this amazing work. So obviously the obvious is that Desmon and Derrick are twins, which I found fabulous, and they both have names that begin with D, so I love this. So can one or both of you talk about you all and how you got into this idea of this Bronx Foundation?
No, like Desmon, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. So just by way of personal background, even though we sort of appeared to your description, Eileen, we're born and raised in the South Bronx, born and raised in Morris Heights. We Derrick and I describe ourselves as products of nonprofits, products of philanthropy. We come from a family of people who've worked for Bronx nonprofits all of their lives. The women who raised us were frontline workers, nurses. Our grandmother worked at Bronx Lebanon Hospital for 50. She retired on her 50th anniversary, work year anniversary. Our aunt, the other woman who raised us, she worked at Our Lady of Mercy Hospital in the East Bronx for 45 years. Our mother worked at the Bronx Department of Sanitation for many, many years. And our father, who also worked in the Bronx many, many years, was a civil rights construction activist in the Bronx and across the city, fighting for Black and Latinx jobs in the construction industry. And so my brother and I grew up in that environment. We grew up in a family of immigrants as well. Our father and our family immigrated to the Bronx in their early teens. And so, although the foundation's work is sort of just becoming, apparent. We grew up in an environment, we've always had a family that's given back to the Bronx. And so, being born and raised in that environment, Derrick and I have always, been brought up to taught that we have to give back to the community. And so Bronx nonprofits have been a part of our lives since the very beginning, whether it's helping us in our housing, affordable housing, whether it's our education, supported by nonprofits, whether it was when our parents were in need. And so we've been sort of in this community our whole lives and been giving back in various different ways. The foundation is just another way for us to do our small part. I don't know if Derrick, you want to add any more to that?
Yeah, no, I would just add that, we grew up volunteering. As Desmond mentioned, we like to call ourselves products of philanthropy. We were supported by Bronx nonprofits, but also grew up volunteering at Bronx nonprofits. And when we were at the right age, where we felt as if we could play a small part in also helping to support our community, we created the foundation as an opportunity for us to foster collaboration. A core component of the foundation, which I know we'll talk a little bit about, is around collaboration, and really ensuring that, there's an opportunity for us to work in collaboration with organizations already doing the great work in the community. And just personally, we, as Desmond mentioned, we grew up around people who always gave back, people who had careers around giving back, whether it's our father who was a grassroots activist, picketing and doing all the things activists do in order to push forward the rights of those who have been historically marginalized, and so that's the environment we grew up in.
So I have to say that's so interesting, and for the audience. So I am on meetings with these two wonderful people twice a week for months. This has been going on, and I've never heard that story. So about your background. So I'm very happy to hear that, and it's now it makes it even more understandable why you're doing the work you do. So I know that this began as the Bronx Relief Fund. And so can you talk a little bit about the idea of getting back, but how did you go from there to starting this fund, which during the pandemic, which now has become a foundation?
Sure. So the idea of the foundation actually started a few years ago. And so Desmond and I were thinking about how do we really give back in a way that's not duplicative, right? We didn't want to create another nonprofit that was doing already the great work of that other nonprofits were already doing. And so we spoke to many community leaders, and we spoke to many nonprofit leaders and public sector leaders, and tried to get a better understanding of where there was an opportunity for us to play a small role in helping to progress the prosperity of our community. And so we identified really an opportunity to be a collaborator. We didn't want to create, direct services, because we knew there were a lot of organizations already doing great work in the direct, providing direct services to the community. But one opportunity we did saw was a place for us to foster more collaboration. Nonprofits in the Bronx are already doing great work, but the resources that are there to support those nonprofits have been, frankly, very thin. And so a lot of nonprofits are working to solve challenges that one organization alone can't solve. One organization alone can't solve for the entirety of, food insecurity in the Bronx. One organization alone can't solve for the digital divide. And so we saw an opportunity to say, how can these organizations work together to solve that to solve those challenges? And so we, a few years ago said, why don't we look for an opportunity to create an organization that could foster collaboration amongst all the organizations in an objective and unbiased way. And when I say that, I mean, we as an organization don't necessarily benefit from the collaborative itself. We benefit from what comes out of the collaborative, because we say that the collaborative will help to strengthen existing programs, but also potentially come up with new programs made up of the members of those collaboratives working together. And then that thus far impacts the community. And so we came up with that idea a few years ago. Maybe I'll let Desmond sort of talk about how we got to the relief effort.
Yeah, and I think just another point to add, it's not also just about the collaboration. It's also about looking at the holistic needs of the community. As Derrick said, there are a number of great organizations doing great work. We've benefited, personally from those organizations. There's an opportunity for us to look at sort of all of the various needs of our families and our residents, whether it's food, whether it's digital equity, whether it's housing, and try to figure out a way to build a concentric circle around all of that to really holistically provide a solution. And so that's where we truly believe it's not just about the collaboration, it's about sort of bringing all these very important sort of aspects of what our community needs together, and then finding a holistic way to solve it, in a concentric circle way, really, because a lot from our own personal experiences, we needed help in all of those areas. And there were a lot of great organizations doing the work in those areas, but the collaboration wasn't there. And bringing that all together and looking at the holistic solutions is really important. And so, as Derrick said, we started that several years ago. Fast forward to 2020, when COVID happened, where we had the intention to launch actually the foundation after, a couple of years of doing a lot of community conversations and learning from others, and really sort of galvanizing support around this idea. When COVID hit, we couldn't really put our foot forward to launch an organization in the middle of COVID, for a number of reasons. One is our time, resource, and efforts really needed to be put towards helping as best we can in our small part, as a part of providing resources to the community. And so instead of really launching the foundation in the traditional sense, meaning going out and talking about what we're going to do, we launched the Bronx Community Relief Effort. The Bronx Community Relief Effort really was a way for us to launch in at an important time where we think the community was coming together to try to solve this very pressing need around COVID-19.
And how did you decide which areas to concentrate on?
It's a great question. So we had been having dialogue with the community before 2020 around the needs and where the community believed there was an opportunity for us as an organization to play a role to help foster, to Desmond's point, sort of the concentric capability, right? So we had community conversations with community leaders and asked them sort of, what do you think are the key areas that we should focus on? But more importantly, what are the key areas that you believe require support within the community? And so, the topic of food insecurity was, kept coming up. The topic of the fact that the Bronx is the largest digital desert in the city, that topic kept coming up. The support needed for our small businesses. We're a small business economy, as you know, Eileen, in the Bronx. The support needed around housing. Desmond and I grew up in affordable housing, so we know what it's like to be in affordable housing, but also have affordable housing organizations sort of operate in a lot of ways on shoestring budgets. The support needed for our nonprofits, as you more astutely know than we do, Eileen, the fact that there are a lot of nonprofits that are budgeting month to month because there aren't a lot of there isn't a lot of money, frankly, that's coming into the Bronx to support our nonprofits. And so through the dialogue that we've been having with leaders across the Bronx, we came up with the 8 key focus areas through that dialogue. So it wasn't something that we came up with randomly, or it was something that we came up with in a vacuum and then we just sort of presented it. It was through the dialogues that we had been having, a few years prior to COVID hitting.
So we have to take a short break, but I want to come back and talk about the continuing dialogues and how the foundation at this point is structured and what you see as the future, or what you want to create as the future.
This year, New York City began using ranked choice voting in primary and special elections for local offices, such as mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. Ranked choice voting means that voters can rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference, instead of casting a vote for just one. You can still vote for just one candidate if you prefer. So, how will your ballot look? Your ballot will look the same as always, except now there will be a checkbox with ranking numbers depending on how many candidates there are in a race. So how does it work? If your first choice gets over 50% of votes, they automatically win the race. If none of the candidates get more than 50% of votes on the first round, then the candidate with the least amount of votes gets eliminated, and the votes get recounted again in a second round of counting. Here's an example. Let's rank colors. I like blue the most, so I'm marking it 1. I like purple 2nd, green 3rd, and orange 4th. Okay, my votes are in. Now other votes are counted and the results are as follows. Blue earned 36%, purple earned 27%, green earned 19%, and orange earned 18%. As you can see, none of these colors earned more than 50% of the votes. So the one with the smallest amount of votes gets eliminated. Voters who chose orange as their first choice now have their votes distributed to their second choice. This continues until a candidate receives 50% of the votes and becomes the official winner of the race. That's it. That's ranked choice voting. Ready? Let's vote. If you're struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311. That's 833-511-0311.
Welcome back to the conversation that we're having with co-founders of the Bronx Community Foundation, Desmond and Derrick Lewis. So we've been talking about how this whole wonderful program came about, but can we talk a little bit about the impact that the Bronx Relief Fund and now the Bronx Foundation has had during the pandemic?
Sure.
Go
ahead, Derrick.
No, please go ahead.
I want you to do it together.
Yeah, sure. So, to Derrick's point earlier, as we were having our community conversations and trying to identify what the needs were across the community, we launched the Bronx Community Relief effort with those same needs at the forefront of our vision. And, as we were coming up with goals, really our primary goal was to get as many resources as possible into the community. And so just in terms of sort of some of the key sort of numbers and goals and in terms of our focus, first one is food. So in food, we distributed, more than 2 million meals, and that's, hot meals, produce, partnering with restaurants, food pantries, a number of critical organizations that get food into the community. Food was, probably our largest focus area, and arguably amongst people who work in the community are one of our largest needs. Another area of focus was on digital equity, digital divide. Obviously, we know, in addition to being the largest, food desert, we also are the largest digital desert. And so, we distributed more than 2,000 Chromebooks and MiFi devices with our partners to ensure that the primary focus was really to make sure our youth were going home with the proper equipment to study from home. That it quickly evolved into a much larger need, whether it's, our families trying to work from home or whether it's other, needs in terms of getting resources online, providing, the 2,000 plus Chromebooks and MiFi devices was important, but also we provided over 500 paid internships with our partners to support youth, when SYEP was shut down. I don't know if Derrick, you want to give a few other metrics as well.
What we also did was we know that our nonprofits who provide arguably the most critical services to our community, there was a need for us to support our nonprofits. And so we've distributed over $1 million in grants to nonprofits to allow for them to continue the great work they're doing, either, continuing to hire resources and or pay for any operating costs that they had. But we wanted to ensure that our nonprofits receive the resources they need to continue to provide the most critical services to our community. The Bronx is really a small business economy. And so to date, we provided over $1 million in monies to small businesses in the Bronx. And those small businesses use those dollars to, rehire workers, to pay their operating costs. We also, in parallel to that, provided, capacity and advisory services to the small businesses. And then we also provided capacity and advisory services to nonprofits, as Eileen, providing really services to our nonprofits to ensure that they not only, were able to use that capital, but was able to stretch that capital and to be able to sustain their businesses. We also provided, Desmond, go ahead. You want to talk about other impact areas?
I was going to say for housing, we also created a technical assistance learning community and provided grants directly to affordable housing organizations, really who were facing sort of a perfect storm of resources being very low, residents obviously being furloughed or laid off, so couldn't, not being able to pay rent, and then obviously being put under the strain of having to deal with COVID-19 restrictions and requirements. And so our housing organizations, as a part of our housing work, came together and really talked about how can they partner and collaborate in ways to support residents. But I also just want to highlight another very important point in terms of how we decided to distribute these resources. And it's important to note that we are a participatory-led organization, meaning all of our grant making is participatory, meaning we have nonprofit leaders, housing leaders, small business leaders that are already working in the Bronx, deciding where those resources go. The foundation, we are really focused on being a participatory organization from beginning to end, from top to bottom, or from bottom to top. And so all of our decision making, whether it's grant making, whether it's resource distribution, and even, to the point of deciding, how we operate as an institution, is decided with community-led, community vision, as well as community informed. And so participatory activity, and being informed by the community in everything we do is going to be core to our mission and how we operate as an organization.
And also, just to add to that, the Bronx Community Relief effort was actually operated 100% volunteer. The foundation currently does not actually have full-time resources working on what we do. And so participatory also means community-led, community-driven. And we sort of take this community power approach to say, our community is involved in not only with the decision-making, but also the execution of the activities that we do as a foundation.
And so where do you see I know this is one of those typical questions, but where do you see the foundation in 5 years? What are your goals? What do you want the foundation to be doing down the road?
Oh, Desmond, do you want to go first?
Sure. So, I mean, our we have very lofty vision and lofty goals, right? We're not sort of naive enough to think that we're going to solve all of the systemic and institutional challenges we face, because they are systemic. They are, born from institutional, in many cases, racist decision making that has been done in the Bronx for many, many decades. But we're trying to see if we can move the needle in the best way we can. So whether it's, not being the most food insecure place in the entire city, moving that needle further towards prosperity, whether it's not being the largest digital desert, so helping to close the digital divide in the best way we can, whether it's, providing support to our housing organizations and our small businesses and our nonprofits. And so our goals really are to, build prosperity across all of these areas and really build partnerships, strong, long-lasting partnerships across the community to uplift and build capacity for organizations already doing the work, right? And I think that's very important for us in terms of an organization. We want to build capacity and uplift organizations already doing the work and help to really move towards the goal of really eradicating a lot of these systemic and institutional challenges.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I think, where we see ourselves five years is really playing a role to help to be a connector and a convener, but also help to think about strategic initiatives through collaboration, right? And also thinking about innovative ways to solve the challenges that we face as a borough through collaboration. And so it's working with organizations already doing the great work, but also thinking about how can we be innovative and coming up with new ideas to solve these challenges, but also bringing additional resources into the borough. Our goal as a foundation is to be an advocate along with the nonprofits in the Bronx to bring additional resources. We believe long are the days where the Bronx is being looked at as a place where, resources are scarce, right? We want to help bring significant amount of resources and put and shine a light on the great things that are a part of our home and a part of our community.
Yeah. And bring the community into that process. Right, that's very important for us to bring the community into that process to decide, what the community and what we believe is needed and where those resources should be going.
And can you just talk a little bit about Bronx.org so people know
Sure.
how they can get more information?
Sure. Yeah. So there's two primary websites. One is one we launched during the relief effort, which is called helpforthebronx.org. And that's really where we found a need talking to hundreds of community leaders and community grassroots organizations where at the time there wasn't a single place for people to find resources or to identify where they can get help. And so we launched helpforthebronx.org as a way for people to have a one-stop sort of location they can go to find these resources. And then we also have thebronx.org, which is primarily focused on educating people on the foundation and what resources we have available and the work that we're doing so that the community can get involved and really help us, and inform us as we're going out and doing this work.
So you've been doing this with a lot of people who have been, and I can speak to this, a lot of people who have been on calls every week, looking at ways to help make the Bronx a better place and a place which provides opportunities for better lives for the citizens of the Bronx. And everybody on those calls and the two of you have been doing this as not as a job, but as a volunteer commitment. So somewhere down the line, there had to be a conversation about we needed help and we need to hire people. So can you talk a little bit about what, so people know if they have an interest, what you're looking for now, because you are looking to hire?
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, Eileen, Desmond and I have never really worked for the foundation in the traditional sense. We've never been paid or had a salary. We've been working on the foundation work for years, volunteer, because, we are born and raised in the Bronx. This is our community. We love our community, and we feel as if we need to do this for our community, being from here. But you are right. There was a point in time where we realized that there was capacity needed to bring on additional resources. And so we've actually recently started an executive director search, which will be our first full-time hire for the Bronx Community Foundation. That process kicked off a few weeks ago with a community engagement process. We wanted to really be intentional in engaging the community to help craft, what we think the sort of background, demographic, experience, et cetera, of this leader should be. So we were very intentional in starting off really asking the community, what type of leader should be in this executive director role. And then in the next, week or so, we're going to be, formally launching the executive director search, because that community engagement process informed the bio, the job requirement, the job description. And then we're going to be going out and launching the executive director search shortly. And we ask your viewers, but also the wider Bronx community, to really reach out and engage with us. If you know of someone that fits the criteria that we have, if you know someone that has the experience that we're looking for, to please reach out to us. And or if you are that person, please consider applying for the executive director role. Des, I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think you captured that. We, hopefully the job description will be coming out shortly, and then we would love to engage Bronxites across the community to seek your support.
And that's all we have time for, I'm sorry to say. But just to let the audience know that we will, in addition to going to the website, bronx.org, the Center for Bronx Nonprofits will also be sending out the information of when the application for executive director comes through. So you'll be able to get information from us. But so I have to say thank you for doing this. But more than that, thank you for what you're doing, because as somebody who's been close to this project, I just have to say personally that it has been one of the most exciting and gratifying experience to work with the two of you and all the people you've brought together. So thank you. And it'll be great.
And we have to thank you, Eileen, as well, and the Center for Bronx Nonprofits for everything you've done for many years, but also, your gracious support along with all of our partners. We really can't do it as a volunteer organization without the support of organizations like Hostos and many others.
Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all we've had time for today in our visit with Desmond and Derrick Lewis, co-founders of the Bronx Community Foundation. If you've missed part of the show or you would like to see it again, just go on bronxnet.tv and look for Mission BX. And please join us again as we have another wonderful visit with one of our very special nonprofits in the Bronx.